Hey, what is happening? This is Maxim Cruz with you here again. Today we're going to be talking about common area. So just a disclaimer again, I am not an attorney or a tax professional. If you want any of that advice, make sure you seek the right legal help. I am, however, a licensed real estate broker as well as a real estate investor, and today we are talking about common area. So this is very typical to see typically in commercial buildings, so typically in office buildings, strip malls, etc. The common area is pretty much all of the common area outside of your own private office. So a lot of people will understand when they go to for example, a typical office building, if you're meeting with your attorney or a consultant, or if you're just having a meeting in an office, that office is that private office. Everything, the hallways, the elevators, the stairs, all that stuff is what's called common area. Same thing with, for example, strip malls, where you'll have different shopping centers, etc. You'll have the main shopping area, or even, for example, a big mall, you'll have the main shopping stores, which would be individual, and then all these other areas where people walk by, the food court area or whatever, all those areas are common areas. So in this scenario, what I've done is, I've just laid out this rectangular building. Let's say the total area square footage is 10,000 square feet. The common area, so it's all of this hallway area, is, let's say, 2,000 square feet. So that means that 20% of this building is common area. Now, the reason that you want to know this, both for lease scenarios as well as purchase scenarios, whether you're buying the whole building or let's say there was these 10 individual condo offices, you need to know what the common area is, because that gives you what's called the common area factor. The tricky part about commercial real estate, especially in commercial condos, that you need to ask, make sure you ask this, is that square footage that this office is here, is that the total square footage of my office, or does that include my common area factor? Now, believe it or not, what will happen is they'll sell you, so let's say these 10 offices make up 8,000 square feet, so that's 800 square feet per office. They'll sell you these 10 offices at 1,000 square feet with a common area factor of 1.2, which means that 20% of that square footage that you're buying is actually 20% ownership of that common area. So you need to understand the difference between what you're actually buying and if that includes the common area factor. Same thing is if you're leasing. Let's say the utility bill for the common areas is $1,000 a month. If you have these 10 offices split 10 ways, if they're the same exact size, so let's say 1,000 split 10 ways is $100. Each one of those offices is going to have to pay $100 on top of their lease for the common area. Now again, that depends, and again, I'll do a whole other video talking about commercial lease terms and how that affects your lease terms and what items you should understand that are part of your lease and what items are not. But overall, just understand what the common area is. It's everything that is outside of what is considered, your private office, your little four walls, if you want to call in this example. And again, as we look into our criteria here, if you haven't seen my other video where I break down each one of these 16 items, if you're buying this building as a whole, you need to understand what the common area is, because again, if you're looking at average offices in the area that are, renting for, let's say, the average office size is 1,000 square feet, but because of the common area factor, all your offices are 500 square feet, well, you might be in a position where instead of renting 10 500 square foot offices, you might be better off breaking down some walls and maybe having, 3 or 4 1,000 square foot offices, and then the other ones being smaller, or whatever the scenario is. So you need to understand that, and you need to understand how common area affects your square footage. Next is the income. Obviously, if you are including, let's say you're buying a commercial building and there's these 10 offices, and the rent is what's called a gross lease. So the tenant is paying for nothing. Well, pretty much they have one base figure, but you as the landlord are paying for the real estate taxes, the maintenance, the cleaning of this area, the maintenance of the area, the air conditioning of that area, etc., the heating, whatever it is. That is going to affect your income, and that is going to affect your expenses as well. So obviously understanding the location, the size, the income. Appreciation, maybe not as much, because that you're not taking into effect when you're looking at common area. Definitely expenses, definitely at price, because you're looking at comparables. As far as leverage, probably not considering a loan or any of that stuff. Financing term, tax benefits, tax bracket. Obviously for the tax benefits and tax bracket, make sure you watch my other video where I talk about the class life of a building and what that does. Your rent increases, definitely a huge factor there. If your common area factor is 25%, and all the buildings in that shopping plaza, their common area factor is only 10%, well, most likely people are going to prefer to go in that other building where they get more for their dollar versus paying more fees for what you have. So rent increase is definitely impacted there, and you want to know how that affects it. Tax incentives, probably not. Reinvestment of cash flow, I guess, no, probably not considered at all, because you're not looking at that. Closing cost, capital, none of that stuff, risk. So again, if you're just, if you call me up as a broker and say, hey Max, I'm looking for a commercial building, but I don't want to look at any buildings where the common area factor is higher than 10%. And I'm going to say, okay, why? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 16. Possibly you're looking into 8 out of 16 when you're talking about common area. So you are telling me that if I found you a deal that the cash flow on it would be $100,000 a month, and that represented a cap rate of 9%, and that represented a projected cash return of 15%. You would not buy that building because the common area factor was 22%. That is what you're telling me. Well, no, that's not what I'm telling you. Well, that's what you said. So common area factor, I don't even think it's a comparable when you're looking at these items. There's just so much more to think about when you're looking into investing into real estate than just the common area factor. I think for leasing, and obviously if you're just buying one office, it's important to understand it. It's important to understand how that's affecting the situation that you're looking into it. But just making a decision on a common area factor, don't let that break your deal. Same thing if you're looking for a lease and everything else around you is expensive and the common area factor is we're gonna make it or break it, consider the location, consider the business opportunities, other people you can network with, what's the traffic like in that area, what's the parking like, what are the other expenses. Maybe it's beneficial to you to have a common area factor that's higher. Maybe you're a 30% common area factor, so your office is a little bit smaller, but maybe that common area includes, I don't know, an amenity. Maybe there's a common gym, a common workout room, a common meeting room. That's huge. A lot of these micro offices nowadays, you'll have 2 or 3 small offices in this building, and then they'll have a common area room that you can reserve that's shared on a floor. So maybe there's additional amenities that's provided for that, where somewhere else that the common area factor is only 15%, but then whatever, I don't know, the taxes may be higher or whatever the case is. So just understand how common area can affect whatever decision that you're making, and don't allow it to be your only reason to proceed or not to proceed with the deal. So hopefully this helps you. If you want me to cover any specific questions or topics, please let me know. Reach out to me. Let me know how I can help you. Have an awesome day.